Let's start with a little game. Please raise your hands if you are not a trained singer. Please keep your hands up if you sing. Thank you. Please raise your hands up if you are not a trained chef. Please raise your hands up if you're not a trained chef but you cook. How dare you? You see, when I was first called to speak here, I was really excited. I really wanted to share my thoughts on theatre, creativity, filmmaking. And then I took a step back and I thought, if I have to not preach, I will have to tell you my story. And if I have to inspire anyone in any way, I'll have to share my achievements. And in that moment, I froze. No, it's not because I'm scared of public speaking. I do this for a living. In fact, only a week ago, I was hosting the Ambani pre-wedding, and I did not want to talk about it. Someone had to push me to say this today. You see, at a very young age, we were taught humility, even before we could spell the word. And somewhere, humility also meant not taking pride in your achievements, almost feeling shame. How dare you? I first heard this statement when I was 13 years old. This is 1999, you are free to do the math. I come from a very small town in Jharkhand. 1999 meant no internet, no emails, no smartphones, and no access to people as freely as we have today. In school, I came across an opportunity. The local newspaper, Hindustan Times, was looking for citizen journalists, people who would go across town, talk to strangers, take interviews, write about them, and turn these issues into newspaper articles. I had the audacity to take the opportunity, which also meant earning 750 rupees a month as stipend, and I wanted to make my parents proud. So every day after school, I would get on my scooty, go to the local office, write, rewrite, edit, work on the article, and I managed to get the first article out. City sewers, the harbinger of filth. Very fancy. Very proudly, I came back with a paycheck. But what I heard was, how dare you take your education for granted? Now, that was the first time I felt fear. And I internalized that fear. Somewhere, an idea was born and had been nipped in the bud. But I was a good kid. I worked hard. I got good grades, topped my class, won an award, and came to Delhi University to study economics honors. Now, I don't know if it's still relevant, but economics honors meant a lot of grueling hours of studying, researching, a lot of paperwork, so no extracurricular activities. But if you're not a rebel in your youth, are you a youth at all? So then I discovered the love of my life, theatre. The joy of standing in these lights, looking at people, feeling that thrill. I got so good at it that my directors eventually volunteered to write me a recommendation letter if I applied to the National School of Drama. I was so excited. I went to my parents and I said, I want 250 rupees to buy the application form. And you know what I heard? How dare you take your hobby as an occupation? You need to study more, you need to get a stable job, and you need to earn money. But you know, it's not their fault. They were operating from their own fears. And so, I took up a scholarship program in finance at SP Jain in, of all the places, Mumbai. I arrive here, I land myself a very lovely cushioned job in international banking. I'm sitting in the head office at Horniman Circle. I'm living in Bandra West, living the life. Everything was sorted. And then one day, my flatmate comes and asks me, uh, didn't you mention you used to act? So there are these bunch of people who are looking for an actor. But the condition is they only rehearse late in the evening because they have day jobs. And I thought, how dare you? I have a lovely sorted life. Why would I do something like this? Next day, I was in the rehearsal room. I was working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and rehearsing from 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. Now you call this madness, audacity, passion, whatever it was. It led us to form our first professional working people's theatre group, and in less than a year, we performed an original play on the most prestigious stage that we knew, Prithvi Theatre in Mumbai. Bunch of outsiders, no connections, but we've arrived in a way. But you know, audacity, it's not a step you take once. She likes to have her limits tested. It was 2011. I had upgraded to a job in consulting. I was earning a 7-figure salary. Everything was going great, but I used to work very crazy hours, which also meant goodbye theatre. One day I got a phone call. My mother had undergone a cataract surgery and had started losing vision in both eyes due to medical negligence. The following 1 year, my mother and I spent endless hours undergoing surgeries, trials, just to know at the end of the year that her eyesight could not be restored. She had lost her vision and her job for good. It meant heavy emotional distress and financial burden on the family. Now, around that time, I was due to sit for my appraisal. My then boss, who was also a friend, he gave me an option. I could choose a very good increment, or I could quit my job and pursue my passion. You know, that ugly question reared its head again. How dare you? But this time, something had changed. You know, when you see how fragile life is and how unpredictable it gets, you start thinking differently. So I quit my job and I decided to pursue my passion. So I was living the life now. I was traveling the country. I was working with some of the best minds in India and internationally. I started acting, writing, directing, and producing because theatre is a medium of limited means and necessity is a mother of invention. But alongside, I started picking up a lot of different jobs in the radio, television, films. I was writing, I was casting, because I still had to support myself and my family. Now, around that time, I had my dream come true. I met a gentleman who was one of the biggest voices in the film industry and whose decision could give me the break I'd always wanted in life. I went up to him and I expressed my desire that I want to be an actor on screen. He looked at me and he said, "Sure, you can act. But what do we do about your face?" And he laughed. And I laughed with him. And then I came home and cried and cried and cried till I had no tears left. My journey was over. Perhaps it was time to quit. Just when I was sitting at home, dejected, ready to hang my boots, I got a call from a friend. So, you know, we're doing this festival in a forest in Mathiran, and we're gathering artists from all across the world to volunteer. would you like to come and work with us? You know, I have really amazing friends, is what I'm realizing right now. So I took the opportunity, and for 1 month, I was living in the forest. So we would gather garbage every day, 120 artists. We would make art out of it. We would upcycle it into a stage. We would train the local people with music and instruments and different forms of art. And eventually, it culminated into a music festival. Now, this also meant a lot of hard work and routine. So get up early every morning, work through the day. But 5 p.m. sharp, we would stop all work, sit in a drum circle, and play music. Now there I came across a 63-year-old Spanish man. He would sit in a corner and play his guitar. And I would just look at him and wonder, wow, I wish I could play the guitar. So one day I mustered up courage and I went up to him and I was like, Henrique, I wish I could play this. And he gave me his guitar. I panicked. I said, I don't know how to do this or what to do with this. And he said, whatever you play is your music. So this is what it meant. To dare, to dream, to have the audacity to go after something, but also to not give up. So I came back to Bombay with this newfound audacity and this newfound passion for music. 1 year later, I had trained myself in playing the guitar. I went on to compose music for a film, 3 for the stage. And suddenly, I was performing on stage with my music. 2 years later, I made my debut with one of the biggest shows in India on Netflix, Sacred Games, with this face. But you know, once you've dared, there's no going back. You still have bills to pay. You have to be practical about all that passion as well. So I still have to take care of myself and my family. So I'm still scouting for work to do. And what do I come across one day? Associate producer required for a web series. I jumped at the idea. Yes, great money. So I went home and I Googled the term associate producer. Because I have no idea what this means. But the good thing that I found was, hey, I may not have the relevant experience, but I have the skill set. I have the passion to learn. And above all, I have the will to dare. So I applied for the job, and I ended up producing my first web series for MX Player called Thinkistan. But you know what? You've dared. And daring can be very greedy. They want you to keep proving yourself. Right in the middle of the show, the writer walks out. Almost 10 days to go. We don't have dialogues on the show. Welcome to our industry. Now, what do? Now, when you dare so many times, audacity becomes a habit. I don't know where that voice came from, and I said, I'll do it. And a room full of men just turned to me and said, have you ever done this before? And I was like, no, I don't know, but I'll do it. And I ended up writing dialogues for the first time for a web series. To dare is to do, which also means that no matter how hard times get, you cannot give up. It has to be an attitude. Now, I can't think of a more challenging situation that humanity faced together than COVID. We all lost something. It could be time, it could be opportunity, it could be loved ones. I lost my father, I lost my younger brother, I lost my home, and everything that came with it. But then, there was a 55-year-old woman, Neelam Singh. She used to drive a yellow school bus all around Mumbai. And it was her dream to drive an ambulance, not only to fend for her family, but to also help people. So when the opportunity arose and BMC made a call out, she immediately volunteered and turned her school bus into an ambulance. A friend and I came across this story and we thought, you know what? This woman's story needs to be told. So we decided to make a documentary on her. So this is December 2020, in the middle of the first wave and the second wave. The world has only slightly eased up. So now we are covered in protective gear, constantly eating santra, washing our hands. We got on that bus with Neelam Singh and started driving around Mumbai, rescuing patients from old age homes to remand facilities, from children's shelter to quarantine facilities, from airports to houses. One woman's audacity had saved so many lives and touched so many hearts. And our audacity to tell her story won us a Filmfare. So I'm only halfway in my journey. I'm not done yet. I don't know what else I'll end up learning along the way. But if there's one thing I can tell you, nobody asks me, how dare you? Instead, they ask me, how did you? And to this, I want to say, it's because someone once said to me, how dare you be an actor, writer, director, producer, consultant, musician, voice actor. You remember I asked you a question at the beginning. It doesn't matter how well you sing. What matters is that you enjoyed it. It doesn't matter if you're a chef. What matters is that you learned a life skill. So today, I dare you so that you can be here tomorrow and tell the world, how did you? Thank you.